The 1950s introduced drive-ins, car hops, and the birth of modern fast food chains, full of quirks that seem wild today. Burgers could cost a nickel, and some restaurants even operated out of gas stations. After World War II, booming suburbs, ubiquitous cars, and a demand for convenience-inspired entrepreneurs to open scrappy quick-service restaurants that changed how Americans ate. These weren't the polished chains we know now, but inventive, often strange operations that made eating fast food in the 50s a completely different experience. Fact 1. McDonald's started with real plates and silverware. When you think of McDonald's today, you probably imagine paper wrappers, cardboard boxes, and plastic utensils, but it wasn't always that way. When the original McDonald's opened in San Bernardino, California in 1940, Dick and Mac McDonald ran a traditional drive-in where car hops served food on real china plates with metal forks and knives. Customers sat in their cars and were handed meals much like at a classic diner. In 1948, the brothers completely redesigned their operation, introducing the speedy service system. They realized that using real dishes slowed service and created extra costs from dishwashing and breakage. By switching to paper wrappers, disposable sleeves, and other simplified methods, they could serve more customers faster and more efficiently. At the time, this transition was radical. Customers had to adjust to hamburgers wrapped in paper and fries in paper sleeves. A very different experience from sit-down dining or traditional drive-ins. Despite the initial shock, people quickly appreciated the speed, convenience, and lower cost. This shift to disposable serving became a defining feature of fast food, setting a precedent for generations to come. Every wrapped burger today carries the legacy of that 1940s innovation, when efficiency and simplicity reshaped the dining experience forever. Fact 2. Burger King was almost called Insta-Burger King forever. When Burger King first started in 1953 in Jacksonville, Florida, it was called Insta-Burger King, named after the Insta-broiler that cooked both sides of a burger patty at the same time. The founders wanted to emphasize speed and modern technology, but the machine proved unreliable, constantly breaking down and causing headaches for franchisees trying to keep up with customer demand. In 1954, James McLemore and David Edgerton bought the company and replaced the troublesome broiler with a more dependable flame broiler that required less maintenance. They also decided to simplify the name, dropping Insta and keeping just Burger King. The name change happened gradually, and by 1959, the company was officially Burger King Corporation. The shorter, catchier name helped establish a strong brand identity that is still recognized worldwide today. Those early years under the original clunky name are a reminder that sometimes the smartest branding decision is knowing what to remove. By focusing on reliability and simplicity, the company not only solved operational problems, but also set the stage for the iconic fast food brand we know now. Fact 3. Drive-in car hops were mostly young men. When you picture a 1950s car hop at a drive-in, you probably imagine a young woman in a short skirt and roller skates bringing food to customers' cars, an image reinforced by countless movies and TV shows. In reality, during the early 1950s, most car hops were young men. Restaurants like A&W, Sonic, and early McDonald's employed men because the work was physically demanding, carrying heavy trays loaded with food and drinks back and forth from the kitchen to the parking lot in all kinds of weather. Owners believed young men were better suited for this labor-intensive job. It wasn't until the mid to late 50s that drive-ins began hiring more women, often to attract male customers, especially teenagers cruising in their hot rods. The novelty of being served by an attractive girl on roller skates became part of the drive-in experience. Some chains, like Sonic, eventually became famous for their skating car hops. But this trend didn't become widespread until later in the decade and into the 1960s. The shift toward female car hops also reflected broader societal changes. As more young women entered the workforce in roles like car hops, waitresses, and retail clerks. At the start of the decade, however, the drive-in parking lot remained largely a young man's domain. Fact 4. Kentucky Fried Chicken's secret recipe was kept in a bank vault. In the 1950s, Colonel Sanders took extreme measures to protect his secret Kentucky Fried Chicken recipe, keeping the handwritten blend of 11 herbs and spices locked in a bank vault in Louisville, Kentucky. Sanders knew that competitors could ruin his business if they got the formula, so he personally mixed the seasoning and shipped it to franchisees in plain, unmarked bags. To further protect the recipe, he used different suppliers for separate ingredients, so no single company could replicate it. The strategy worked. Even after Sanders sold the company in 1964, the recipe remained one of the most closely guarded secrets in the food industry. KFC claims that only a handful of people know the complete formula, and it is still kept in a secure location at company headquarters. Sanders was also obsessive about quality, traveling to franchise locations to taste the chicken and ensure it was prepared correctly. If a franchisee cut corners, he wouldn't hesitate to intervene. This mystique around the secret recipe became a major part of KFC's marketing appeal. Customers loved the idea of eating something unique and exclusive, and that sense of secrecy and quality helped build KFC into the iconic brand it is today. Fact 5. Dairy Queen served soft. Serve in the winter despite losing money. Dairy Queen had a weird problem in the 1950s. They were famous for their soft serve ice cream, but when winter rolled around, sales would drop dramatically. Most people didn't think about eating ice cream when it was cold outside, and that created a serious cash flow problem for franchise owners. The company's founder, J.F. McCullough, and his son Alex had developed the soft serve formula in the 1930s and opened the first Dairy Queen in Joliet, Illinois in 1940. By the 1950s, they had hundreds of locations across the country, but they were all facing the same seasonal challenge. How do you sell ice cream in January when it's freezing outside? Many Dairy Queen locations in northern states would actually close down completely during the winter months because it wasn't financially viable to stay open. Owners would basically shut the doors in October or November and reopen in March or April. When the weather warmed up, this was just accepted as part of doing business in the ice cream industry. But some franchise owners tried to tough it out and stay open year-round. Even though they were losing money, they figured that closing down for months at a time meant losing customers to competitors who might win them over permanently. So they'd serve hot chocolate and try to attract customers with other menu items that weren't ice cream based. It wasn't until the 1960s that Dairy Queen really figured out how to solve the winter problem by expanding their menu to include hot food items like hamburgers and hot dogs. The brazier concept, which added a grill to locations, allowed them to serve lunch and dinner items that would sell, regardless of the weather. But in the 1950s, most Dairy Queens were stuck serving soft serve and praying for warm weather. If you went to a Dairy Queen in the winter during the 1950s, you were one of the few brave souls willing to eat ice cream. When you could see your breath, it was a strange time for the company, but it taught them valuable lessons about diversification and adapting to changing seasons. Fact 6. White Castle invented the fast food industry in 1921. While most people think of McDonald's as the original fast food chain, the truth is that White Castle beat them to the punch by about 30 years. White Castle was founded in 1921 in Wichita, Kansas by Billy Ingram and Walter Anderson, and they essentially invented the entire concept of fast food as we know it today. By the time the 1950s rolled around, White Castle had already been perfecting their system for 3 decades. They were the ones who pioneered the idea of standardized food preparation, where every hamburger was made exactly the same way at every location. They were also the first chain to focus on cleanliness and hygiene. At a time when many people were suspicious of ground beef, White Castle's restaurants were designed to look clean and sanitary, with white porcelain enamel exteriors that gleamed under the lights the company wanted customers to see, that their food was being prepared in a spotless environment, and they trained their employees to maintain high standards of cleanliness at all times. The hamburgers themselves were small and square, with 5 holes punched in the meat to help them cook faster. Customers called them sliders because they were so easy to eat, and you could easily down half a dozen in one sitting. They cost just 5 cents each in the 1920s, and by the 1950s, they'd only gone up to about 10 or 15 cents. What made White Castle revolutionary was their focus on speed, volume, and consistency. They wanted to serve as many customers as possible in the shortest amount of time, and they developed systems and procedures to make that happen. Everything from the layout of the kitchen to the way hamburgers were cooked was designed for maximum efficiency. By the time McDonald's and other chains came along in the 1950s, they were essentially copying the White Castle model and adapting it to their own style. White Castle proved that you could build a successful business by serving cheap food quickly, and that concept became the foundation for the entire fast food industry. If you ate at a White Castle in the 1950s, you were eating at a restaurant that had been perfecting its craft for decades. They were the original, and everyone else was just playing catch-up. Fact 7. A&W Root Beer. Stands let you keep the glass mugs. One of the most distinctive things about eating at an A&W root beer stand in the 1950s was that your root beer was served in an ice-cold, frosty glass mug. And here's the weird part, the restaurant would actually let you keep the mug, if you wanted to. It sounds crazy by today's standards, but it was a common practice at many A&W locations. A&W started as a roadside root beer stand in 1919, and by the 1950s, they had expanded into a nationwide chain with hundreds of drive-in locations. The signature frosty mug became one of their most recognizable features, and customers loved the experience of drinking root beer from a freezing cold glass mug instead of a paper cup. The mugs were kept in a freezer, so when your order came out to your car, the glass would be covered in a layer of frost that made the root beer taste even better. It was a small touch, but it made the whole experience feel special and more upscale than other fast food places. Now you might be wondering how A&W could afford to let customers keep the mugs. The truth is that most people didn't actually take them home. Customers understood that the mugs were part of the dining experience and they'd return them when they were finished. But if someone really wanted to keep a mug as a souvenir, the car hops usually didn't make a big fuss about it. Some A&W locations would charge a small deposit for the mug, and if you returned it, you'd get your money back. This system worked pretty well and kept most of the mugs in circulation, but there were always a few customers who would drive off with the mugs either accidentally or on purpose, and the restaurant just accepted it as part of doing business. The frosty mug tradition became so iconic that A&W still uses it in their restaurants today. Although now, you definitely can't just take the mug home with you. But in the 1950s, things were a lot more relaxed, and taking home an A&W mug was like taking home a little piece of Americana. Fact 8. Jack in the Box had a real clown as its mascot. Jack in the Box opened its first location in San Diego, California in 1951, and the restaurant's concept was built around a giant clown head that served as both a mascot and a drive-through speaker. But what many people don't realize is that in the early years, the chain actually hired real clowns to make appearances at their restaurants and entertain customers. The founder, Robert Peterson, wanted to create a fun and memorable experience that would stand out from other fast food chains. So he came up with the idea of Jack the giant clown-faced mascot that sat on top of the restaurant and greeted customers. The Jack character had a pointy hat, a big smile, and a somewhat unsettling appearance that kids either loved or found terrifying. In the 1950s, Jack in the Box locations would host promotional events where real clowns dressed as Jack would show up to do magic tricks, make balloon animals, and interact with children. It was meant to create a carnival-like atmosphere and draw in families who were looking for entertainment along with their hamburgers and tacos. The clown appearances were especially popular on weekends and holidays, when the restaurants were already busy. Adding a live clown to the mix created even more excitement and gave parents a reason to choose Jack in the Box. Over the competition, it was pure marketing genius, and it worked incredibly well. Of course, by today's standards, the whole thing seems a bit strange, especially given that clowns have become more associated with horror movies than family fun. But in the 1950s, clowns were still seen as wholesome entertainment, and Jack in the Box capitalized on that cultural moment. The giant jack head on top of the building also functioned as the drive-through speaker. Customers would pull up and place their order by speaking into Jack's mouth, which would then relay their order to the kitchen inside. It was a novelty that made the experience feel futuristic and fun. Eventually, the live clown appearances faded away as the chain grew and focused more on food quality and speed. But that original Jack mascot remained a central part of the brand identity for decades, and even today the character is still used in Jack in the Box. Marketing fact 9. Dog and Suds used actual skating car hops. Dog and Suds was a drive-in chain that got its start in Champaign, Illinois in 1953 and quickly became known for two things: their root beer and their skating car hops. While other drive-ins were experimenting with car hops on roller skates, Dog and Suds went all in on the concept and made it a signature part of their brand. The car hops at Dog and Suds were trained to deliver food while gliding smoothly across the parking lot on roller skates, and they made it look easy. They'd carry trays loaded with hot dogs, frosty mugs of root beer, and baskets of fries, all while maintaining perfect balance and speed. It was like watching a performance every time you ordered food. Customers loved the novelty of it, and the skating car hops became one of the main reasons people chose to eat at Dog and Suds over other drive-ins. It added an element of entertainment to the meal and made the whole experience feel more special. Watching a car hop skate up to your car window with your order was just plain fun. But being a skating car hop wasn't as easy as it looked. The job required real athletic ability and coordination. You had to be able to skate backwards, take sharp turns, and stop on a dime, all while holding a tray of food and making sure nothing spilled. It was physically demanding work, and not everyone could do it. Well, Dog and Suds would actually hold auditions and training sessions for new car hops to make sure they had the skills necessary to skate and serve at the same time. If you couldn't handle the skates, you didn't get the job. It was that simple. The company took pride in having the best skating car hops in the business. The skating car hop trend eventually spread to other chains like Sonic, which became famous for their own version of the concept. But Dog and Suds was one of the pioneers who proved that it could work on a large scale. Throughout the 1950s and into the 1960s, their restaurants were packed with customers who came as much for the show as for the food. If you ever had the chance to eat at a Dog and Suds in the 1950s, you witnessed a unique piece of American fast food history that combined athletic skill, showmanship, and good old-fashioned customer service. Fact 10. Sonic Drive-In. Started as a root beer stand called Top Hat. Sonic Drive-In is one of the most recognizable fast food chains today. But back in 1953, when it first opened in Shawnee, Oklahoma, it wasn't called Sonic at all. It was called Top Hat Drive-In, and it was just a small root beer stand that served hamburgers and hot dogs to customers in their cars. The founder, Troy Smith, had worked at a different drive-in and learned the business before deciding to open his own place. He scraped together enough money to buy a small lot and set up a simple operation with a walk-up window and a few parking spaces for cars. The concept was straightforward: serve good food fast and make sure customers didn't have to get out of their cars. Top Hat did well enough that Smith decided to expand. And in 1959, he changed the name to Sonic to reflect the space-age optimism of the era. The 1950s were all about speed and technology, and the name Sonic suggested something fast and futuristic, which perfectly captured the spirit of the times. The drive-in concept that Sonic used was based on the idea that customers wanted convenience above all else. You could pull into a parking stall, push a button to place your order, and a car hop would bring your food right to your window. You never had to leave your car, and the whole process took just a few minutes. It was perfect for busy families and teenagers who wanted to grab a quick meal. What made Sonic different from other drive-ins was their focus on variety. They didn't just serve hamburgers and fries. They also offered things like chili dogs, tater tots, onion rings, and a wide selection of fountain drinks and milkshakes. The menu was bigger than most fast food places, and that gave customers more options to choose from. By the early 1960s, Sonic was franchising and expanding rapidly across the Midwest and South. The skating car hops became a signature feature, and the brand developed a loyal following. But it all started with that humble little root beer stand called Top Hat back in 1953. If you grew up eating at Sonic, you were enjoying the legacy of Troy Smith's original vision to create a fast, convenient, and fun dining experience that kept customers coming back for more. Fact 11. The first McDonald's franchisee wasn't Ray Kroc. Most people think that Ray Kroc was the first person to franchise McDonald's, but that's not actually true. The first official McDonald's franchisee was a man named Neil Fox, who opened his location in Phoenix, Arizona in 1953, 2 years before Kroc got involved. Neil Fox had heard about the McDonald brothers' successful restaurant in San Bernardino and traveled there to see it for himself. He was blown away by the efficiency and speed of their operation and immediately saw the potential for franchising the concept. He approached Dick and Mac McDonald about opening his own location, and they agreed to let him use their name and system. Fox's Phoenix location was successful and proved that the McDonald's concept could work in other markets, but he didn't have the resources or ambition to expand beyond that. One restaurant, he was content to run his single location and make a good living from it. Ray Kroc didn't enter the picture until 1954 when he was working as a milkshake machine salesman. Kroc had sold several multi-mixers to the McDonald brothers and became curious about why they needed so many machines. He visited their restaurant in San Bernardino, and just like Fox before him, he immediately recognized the potential for nationwide expansion. The difference between Fox and Kroc was ambition. Fox was happy with one restaurant, but Kroc wanted to build an empire. Kroc convinced the McDonald brothers to let him become their exclusive franchising agent, and he opened his first McDonald's in Des Plaines, Illinois, in 1955. From there, Kroc went on to franchise hundreds of locations and eventually bought out the McDonald brothers completely. So, while Ray Kroc gets most of the credit for building McDonald's into a global powerhouse, it's important to remember that Neil Fox was actually the first franchisee who took a chance on the concept and proved it could work outside of California. Without Fox's early success, Kroc might not have been convinced to get involved at all. The story of McDonald's is often simplified to make Kroc the sole hero. But the reality is that there were many people who contributed to the chain's early success, including the McDonald brothers themselves and franchisees like Neil Fox, who saw the potential before anyone else. Fact 12. Bob's Big Boy invented the double-deck hamburger. If you've ever eaten a Big Mac or a Whopper with multiple patties, you have Bob's Big Boy to thank, because they invented the double-deck hamburger back in 1937, long before the 1950s arrived. But by the 50s, the Big Boy burger had become an iconic symbol of American fast food. Bob Wien owned a small hamburger stand in Glendale, California, called Bob's Pantry. And one night, a customer came in and asked for something different, something bigger and more filling. Wien decided to experiment and created a burger with 2 beef patties separated by a middle bun with lettuce, tomato, and special sauce. He called it the Big Boy, and it was an instant hit. The double-deck design was revolutionary because it gave customers more food without making the burger impossible to eat. The middle bun layer helped hold everything together and kept the toppings from sliding out. It was a brilliant innovation that changed the way hamburgers were made. By the 1950s, Bob's Big Boy had expanded into a regional chain with locations across California and the Southwest. The Big Boy character, a chubby kid in checkered overalls holding a burger, became one of the most recognizable mascots in the fast food industry. You could spot a Big Boy restaurant from miles away because of the giant statue out front. Bob's Big Boy also pioneered the coffee shop-style restaurant format, where customers could sit down at a counter or in a booth and order from a menu, instead of just getting food to go. This made the dining experience more comfortable and attracted a wider range of customers, including families who wanted to sit and eat together. Other chains quickly copied the double-deck burger concept, and by the 1960s, every major fast food chain had their own version of a multi-patty burger. But Bob's Big Boy was the original, and they deserve credit for inventing one of the most enduring burger styles in history. If you ate at a Bob's Big Boy in the 1950s, you were eating at a restaurant that had fundamentally changed the fast food landscape and set the standard for what a great burger should be. Fact 13. 1950s. Fast food workers wore full uniforms with hats. When you walked into a fast food restaurant in the 1950s, one of the first things you'd notice was how sharply dressed the employees were. Every worker from the cooks to the counter, staff to the car hops wore full uniforms, complete with hats and aprons. It was all part of the image that fast food chains wanted to project: clean, professional, and efficient McDonald's. For example, require their employees to wear white uniforms with paper hats that looked almost like nurses' caps. The idea was to emphasize cleanliness and hygiene, since customers were still getting used to the idea of eating food prepared by strangers in an assembly line-style kitchen. The uniforms helped reassure people that the food was being handled properly. Car hops at drive-in restaurants like A&W and Sonic wore uniforms that were designed to be both functional and stylish. The outfits usually included matching shirts and pants or skirts along with caps or visors. Female car hops in particular were expected to look neat and put together at all times, and many restaurants had strict grooming standards. The hats were actually an important part of food safety regulations. Workers were required to cover their hair to prevent it from falling into the food, and the paper hats or caps were an easy and inexpensive solution. The hats also helped create a uniform look that made all the employees seem like part of a coordinated team. Some fast food chains took the uniform concept even further and designed outfits that reflected their brand identity. Howard Johnson's, for example, dressed their employees in orange and blue uniforms to match the restaurant's signature color scheme. And Jack in the Box, workers wore outfits that included bow tie-like accessories to give them a more formal appearance. The emphasis on uniforms in the 1950s reflected the era's broader cultural values of conformity, professionalism, and attention to detail. Fast food companies wanted to present themselves as modern, efficient businesses, and having uniformed employees was part of that image. By the time the 1970s rolled around, uniform standards started to relax a bit. But in the 1950s, if you worked in fast food, you wore your uniform with pride and you made sure your hat was on straight. Fact 14. Howard Johnson's had more locations than McDonald's. In the 1950s, Howard Johnson's was the largest restaurant chain in America, with more locations than McDonald's, Burger King, and most other fast food chains combined. At its peak, it had over 1,000 restaurants scattered across highways, cities, and small towns. The chain began as an ice cream shop in Quincy, Massachusetts in 1925. But by the 50s, it had evolved into full-service restaurants, offering everything from fried clams and hot dogs to complete table service meals. Distinctive orange roofs and consistent quality made Howard Johnson's instantly recognizable. Unlike typical fast food chains, Howard Johnson's focused on sit-down dining with waitresses, offering higher quality meals, though they took longer to prepare. Many locations also included motor lodges, creating convenient stops for travelers on the growing interstate. Highway system. Families could eat and sleep in one place, making it a perfect destination for the era's road trips. Success came from consistency and reliability. No matter where you were, from Maine to California, you could expect the same menu, quality, and friendly service. However, as McDonald's and other fast food chains expanded in the 1960s and 70s, Howard Johnson's lost ground to the faster, cheaper model. In the 1950s, though, eating at Howard Johnson's meant experiencing the most successful restaurant chain in America, a piece of history largely forgotten today. Fact 15. Tasty Freeze operators had to make their own soft, served daily. Tasty Freeze, a soft-serve ice cream chain that began in 1950, had a unique and labor-intensive way of operating. Unlike modern soft-serve machines that use pre-mixed liquid base, each franchise operator had to make the soft-serve mix from scratch every morning. Dry ingredients were combined with milk, water, and other liquids in precise measurements, then poured into the machine and frozen to the correct consistency. Mistakes in the ratios could ruin the ice cream, so attention to detail was essential. The company provided instructions and training, but quality still varied depending on the operator's skill. Some franchisees enjoyed the control, tweaking recipes for local tastes, while others found it time-consuming, especially during busy summer months. The daily mixing also ensured freshness and prevented the use of old or expired ingredients, a strict quality control measure. As technology advanced, soft-serve machines evolved, and pre-mixed liquid bases replaced the daily preparation method. But in the 1950s, operators worked the old-fashioned way, starting their day by carefully mixing the soft serve base before the first customer arrived. It was hard work, but it ensured that every cone served was fresh, setting Tasty Freeze apart in the early years of America's soft serve ice cream industry. Fact 16. Der Wiener Schnitzel started with just hot dogs and drinks. Der Wiener Schnitzel opened its first location in Wilmington, California in 1961, but the concept was developed in the late 1950s when founder John Gallardi was working in fast food and dreaming of his own restaurant. What made it unusual was its extreme focus. The menu consisted entirely of hot dogs and soft drinks, with no burgers, fries, or other items. Gallardi believed that by specializing in one product, he could perfect it and serve it faster and cheaper than anyone else. The name was intentionally playful. Der instead of das made it sound fun, and Wiener Schnitzel was borrowed from the Austrian dish, even though nothing Austrian was served. The original A-frame building was painted bright yellow and red with a walk-up window, making service incredibly fast. Minimal ingredients, hot dogs, buns, condiments, and drinks, kept costs low and prices attractive for budget-conscious customers. The concept worked. By the mid-1960s, Der Wiener Schnitzel had dozens of locations across California. Later, chili dogs, fries, and other items were added, but those early years showcased one of the most extreme examples of menu simplification in fast food history. Success proved that you didn't need a huge menu, just one excellent product and the determination to do it better than anyone else. Fact 17. Fast food restaurants used to close on Sundays. In the 1950s, most fast food restaurants were closed on Sundays, reflecting the era's cultural and religious values, when the day was widely regarded as one of rest and worship. Chains like McDonald's, White Castle, and Burger King would lock their doors Sunday morning and reopen Monday, even in big cities. For workers, this guaranteed a day off each week, but restaurant owners sacrificed a full day of potential revenue to adhere to social norms. Some owners closed out of personal religious conviction, while others followed the expectation to avoid being seen as disrespectful or greedy. A few exceptions existed in larger cities serving non-Christian populations or tourists, but these were rare. For most Americans, wanting fast food on a Sunday meant cooking at home or eating leftovers. This practice began fading in the 1960s as culture became more secular and consumer-oriented. And by the 1970s, most fast food chains were open 7 days a week. Today, the idea of closing on Sundays seems quaint, though chains like Chick-fil-A still maintain the tradition. In the 1950s, however, trying to grab a burger on a Sunday meant waiting until Monday for your fast food fix. Fact 18. The first Burger King Whopper cost 37 cents. When Burger King introduced the Whopper in 1957, it was marketed as a premium burger, bigger, better, and priced at 37 cents, which was considered expensive for the time. Most fast food burgers cost between 10 and 20 cents, with McDonald's hamburgers at 15 cents, and White Castle sliders even cheaper. The Whopper featured a quarter-pound flame-broiled beef patty on a 5-inch sesame seed bun, topped with lettuce, tomato, pickles, onions, ketchup, and mayonnaise. Its size and flame-grilled flavor set it apart from competitors using flat-top griddles. The higher price reflected Burger King's strategy to differentiate itself from chains like McDonald's. They aimed to offer a premium product that justified charging more rather than competing solely on price. Customers responded positively, appreciating the larger portion and better quality. And within a few years, the Whopper became Burger King's signature item, a status it maintains today. Adjusted for inflation, 37 cents is roughly equivalent to $4 now, similar to modern premium burger pricing. The Whopper's success demonstrated that fast food customers were willing to pay more for higher quality food, influencing the industry to develop premium menu items and shaping the fast food landscape for decades to come. Fact 19. McDonald's original mascot was a chef named Speedy. Before Ronald McDonald became McDonald's mascot, the chain's original character was Speedy, a chef with a hamburger-shaped head introduced in the late 1940s. Speedy represented the speed and efficiency of the McDonald Brothers' Speedy service system, designed to serve food faster than any other restaurant. He appeared in early advertising and signage, often shown running or moving quickly, emphasizing quick service without sacrificing quality. The Golden Arches, now synonymous with McDonald's, were initially part of the restaurant's architecture before becoming a logo, designed by architect Stanley Meston to catch passing motorists' attention. As McDonald's expanded under Ray Kroc in the mid to late 1950s, the company began targeting children, believing that appealing to kids would bring in families. This led to the development of Ronald McDonald, introduced in 1963, who was more child-friendly and entertaining than Speedy. During the 1940s and 1950s, Speedy embodied McDonald's core values of speed, efficiency, and quality service. He appeared on signs, promotional materials, and restaurant exteriors, grinning down at customers. While he was eventually replaced by Ronald McDonald, Speedy played a crucial role in establishing the brand's identity and communicating the promise of quick, reliable service in the early years of McDonald's growth. Fact 20. Fast food chains would hire architects to design their buildings. One of the most fascinating aspects of 1950s fast food culture was the emphasis chains placed on their building designs. These weren't merely functional structures. They were carefully crafted pieces of architecture meant to catch the eye and draw customers in. Professional architects were often hired to design restaurants, resulting in some of the most distinctive and memorable buildings in America. McDonald's Golden Arches are the most famous example. Designed to be visible from a distance so drivers could spot a location easily. The bright yellow color and parabolic shape were intentional choices to maximize visibility and brand recognition. Other chains used different approaches. Jack in the Box featured a giant clown head, while A&W built restaurants resembling miniature castles or chalets with striking rooflines. Space-age aesthetics also influenced design, with sweeping rooflines, glass, and chrome conveying modernity, progress, and efficiency. These architectural choices were practical too, helping chains stand out in a crowded marketplace before widespread advertising existed. Though many iconic buildings have been demolished, surviving examples remain beloved landmarks, reminders of a time when fast food restaurants weren't just eateries. They were bold statements that made the industry impossible to ignore. The 1950s were a revolutionary era for fast food, full of strange and inventive practices that shaped the industry. From real plates and silverware at McDonald's to skating car hops at Dog and Suds, secret recipes locked in bank vaults, and eye-catching restaurant designs, the fast food world was experimenting in every way. These 20 weird facts show how new, experimental, and sometimes downright bizarre the experience was. The people behind these chains were innovators taking risks, and while some ideas faded, others became the foundation of modern fast food. It was a time of rapid change, with fast food at the heart of American culture.